This is how 3-second biological glitch cost the founder $4 million. It nearly destroyed his marriage 6 hours later. He didn't lose that deal because of weak negotiating. He lost it because his nervous system made a decision before his brain even knew there was a problem. And 6 hours later, that exact same glitch showed up again in his kitchen with the person he loved the most over something that had nothing to do with business at all. This is the story of what happens in your body in the first 3 seconds of a trigger, at work, at home, and how Daniel finally learned to catch it before it cost him something he couldn't get back. Daniel had built his company from a spare bedroom to 40 employees in under 4 years. People called him composed, unflappable, the guy who never raised his voice in a room full of people who were panicking. What nobody could see was what was happening underneath that composure. The careful breathing he'd practiced for years. The slight delay he'd trained himself to take before responding to anything sharp. It had worked for a long time, long enough that even Daniel had started to believe his calm was bottomless. In the renegotiation, the investor's tone shifted. Not even hostile, just clipped, a little colder than usual. And Daniel's body registered it as a threat before his brain had finished parsing the sentence. His heart rate spiked, his jaw locked, his breath went shallow and high in his chest. Scientists call this fight mode. Your body's shifting gears before your mind even knows there's a problem. Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal research describes exactly this. A nervous system that mobilizes for battle without ever consulting the person it's supposedly protecting. Daniel's prefrontal cortex, the part of him that does strategy, nuance, negotiation, went quiet, and something much older took the wheel instead. What came out of his mouth next wasn't a counteroffer. It was an ultimatum, sharp, defensive, nothing like the calculated move he would have made from his thinking brain online. The investor walked. A deal that had taken 8 months to build collapsed in under 90 seconds. Later, Daniel told me he had no memory of choosing those words. That's because he didn't choose them. His body did, discharging the threat signal it had already decided was real, $4 million or not. The deal was dead. But Daniel's nervous system was still on the clock. It was looking for the next threat, and unfortunately, it found one in his own kitchen. That night, Daniel came home and his husband Marcus asked one simple question about the deal, gently with genuine concern. And Marcus's voice happened to dip in the same way the investors had, just slightly cooler, just slightly clipped. Daniel's body didn't know the difference between the boardroom and the kitchen. It registered the same signature, tone shift, perceived distance, and ran that exact same threat scan even though the man standing in front of him had nothing to do with the $4 million he just lost. But this time, instead of exploding, Daniel went quiet, flat. He answered in 3 words and went to bed early. Not because he was angry at Marcus, because his nervous system, already depleted from the boardroom collapse hours earlier, didn't have enough capacity left to fight. So it shut the door instead. Marcus described it later as watching someone leave the room without moving. That's a precise description of what a freeze response actually looks like from the outside. And if you don't have a partner standing in that kitchen with you, this still applies. Swap in a sibling, a roommate, a best friend, even a version of you sitting alone behind a closed door. The pattern doesn't need an audience to run. It just needs a nervous system that's already been through something that day. If you've ever felt that ghost leave the room while you were still standing there, you know exactly how lonely that freeze feels. But here's the good news. Biology isn't destiny. Here's what we worked on. Not communicate better, not stay calm. Those instructions arrived too late. They're aimed at the brain that's already offline. What we built instead was Daniel's ability to notice the bracing at the base of his skull. The tiny tightening that shows up in about a second and a half before the story even forms in his mind. That tiny physical signal became his early warning system. The moment he felt it, he had one move: soften his gaze, drop his jaw, exhale long. The same gap protocol from Tuesday's video. It didn't make the triggers disappear. Triggers are biology. They don't vanish because you understand them. What changed was the gap between the trigger and the reaction. Daniel got 3 extra seconds back. Enough time for his thinking brain to come back online before his mouth committed to anything. He kept his next investor relationship, and he and Marcus started using one shared phrase whenever either of them felt the freeze or the flood coming. My nervous system's online and yours might not be, which gave them both permission to pause without anyone having to defend themselves first. The business and the marriage didn't survive because Daniel became a different person. They survived because he finally understood what his body was doing in the first 3 seconds and gave it something better to do instead. If you want to know which pattern your body runs at work, at home, with the people you love most, take the free relational nervous system quiz at mind-fusion.com/quiz. It takes about 5 minutes and it'll name something you've been living with for years. Welcome to the regulation era, and I'll see you on Tuesday.